Hello, my name is Jeremy Evas and I work in the Cymraeg 2050 division of the Welsh Government, and together with my colleague Indeg Marshall, this video we're going to present to you this afternoon. We're going to have a chat about how we set up human language interpretation in Microsoft Teams, a few of the pitfalls and some top tips so that your meetings run smoothly in English and Welsh. So there'll be enough opportunity to recap, and there's plenty of guidance on the page where this video is sitting. Please watch the video in its entirety. Please read the guidelines. And if you've done that and still you're getting problems, then get in touch with us at Cymraeg2050@gov.wales. As I say, if you've read the video, I've read the guidance, watch the video. So I'm going to take you through the complete ab initio setting up of a meeting from nothing. We are not going to do that yet because I'm going to give a bit of context. This functionality is about human language interpretation. Human language interpretation needs a human to do the interpretation. And there is nothing changed from the old days where we used to all sit in rooms where there'd be a translator in the room. You'd have to book that translator, you'd have to contract with that translator, and that translator would turn up on an understanding with you. That is exactly the same. The functionality we've developed together with Microsoft in Teams doesn't book a human interpreter for you. You've got to do that yourself. So that's the first thing to be aware of. Nothing's changed there. Book a human interpreter. Some of you got framework contracts, some of you got call-off contracts. Just make sure you get the human in the virtual room in this case. Okay, so I'm going to take you through the process as I said, and I'm going to share my screen in entirety. And for this session, for argument's sake, I'm going to start a meeting on Saturday. This is Microsoft Outlook. Equally, you could start the meeting in Teams, and because Teams and Outlook talk to each other and sync the details between each other. So I am going to put a new appointment request in, and I'm going to call this a test meeting, ignore. And I'm going to invite my colleagues Alan and Index, who's on the call, and I'm going to send it. Hey presto, in Outlook, we have the meeting there. And also in Teams, that meeting will have synced through. Nothing that I've done yet will have enabled us to set the language interpretation up. So that's the next step. So you've got to have a human interpreter, you've got to have a virtual meeting set up as normal, and then this is how we do the language interpretation. You open the meeting, you go to meeting options up the top, dewisiadau'r cyfarfod if your menu options are in Welsh, and you click on that. And then there'll be a little wait while this browser window comes up. And here in are all the meeting options, all types of meeting options, who can bypass the lobby, etc., etc. I'm going to make Indeg a co-organizer for the time being, and we'll come back later in this video to the importance of co-organizers for meetings which use interpretation. So that's Indeg as a co-organizer. And all we need to do here, we just need to click on Enable Language Interpretation. And then these, you can toggle that on and off. And in these boxes, we have the pairs of languages you want to work with. In our case, mostly in Wales, the language pair is Welsh to English. So let's have a look. We'll go Welsh there, find it from the drop down to English. And that's the language pair sorted. Equally, English to Welsh would be a language pair, French to Welsh, French to Spanish, Russian to Chinese would be a language pair. And you can have a maximum of 16 language pairs in any one meeting. But we haven't got a human interpreter yet, so we need to find one. And for the purposes of this meeting, that's going to be our colleague Alan. And we just choose him from the drop down. You'll notice Indeg didn't come up in the drop-down menu, and nor did I. That's because we're meeting organisers. I was the original meeting organizer. I made Indeg a meeting co-organizer, which gave her all my privileges, so-called. And meeting organizers, one thing you should realize, cannot be interpreters. An interpreter cannot organize a meeting for you. I know in some organizations which use Zoom for interpretation, they would ask the interpreter to organize the meeting for them. That is not possible with Teams. That's by design. That's a security feature, I believe. So what have we done? We've booked our human interpreter. We have arranged the virtual meeting. We have made Indeg a co-organizer, and we have put a language pair in process, and we have appointed Alan as an interpreter. And then what we have to do is save those options. Done, thank you very much. And then send update. It'll tell you you haven't made any changes, and you just send that update anyway. So there we go. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute and take us on to the next point, which is Indeg, who's going to talk about swapping interpreters and internal versus external interpreters.
Thanks. So yeah, as you saw there, Jeremy was able to add Alan as the interpreter. That scenario would work if Alan was an internal interpreter, or if his email was federated, which I won't go into too much. But if your interpreter, for whatever reason, does not appear in that drop-down menu, what you can do is assign a dummy interpreter. Just someone in your team who's coming to the meeting anyway, ideally, who could a little bit earlier, and you can actually swap with the real interpreter. So I'll share my screen now of a previous meeting or test that we recorded. So if I share that. Right, so you'll see here, I'll pause it for a second. You'll see here Carmel and Darren. So on the right-hand people pane, you'll see that Darren is assigned the interpreter role. But in this case, Carmel is the actual interpreter, and we need to swap them. So if I'll play the video, and if you follow the cursor, it'll go to the 3 dots on the right next to Carmel's name. And all you do is click that and select make an interpreter. And you click the source language, would be Welsh in this case. And oh, quite sure what happened there. Sorry. Little replay. We go to Carmel's name, click the 3 dots and select make an interpreter. And you would pick the source language would be Welsh in this case, and target language would be English. Confirm. So Carmel is now an interpreter, and then you can make Darren an attendee. Just click change. And there you'd have it then. So by joining that meeting early, you'd be able to do that with no pressure of attendees watching you do that, which is always better. And that brings me on to another point, which is to test on the meeting link. So 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever makes you comfortable. We would strongly advise that you and your interpreter and dummy interpreter, if applicable, test that meeting link early. Make sure that you can all get in, make sure that the interpretation channel is open and working correctly, that you can hear everything clearly and you don't have any issues. It's important that you test on that specific link and not set up another test meeting just because it's the meeting options you're testing more than anything. So it just removes any doubt that it is correctly set up. One thing you'll see on this page where this video lives is some guidance. We would strongly recommend that you read the guidance, and we have some meeting attendee guidance you can send out ahead of time as well with the meeting invites. We also have a slide that you can share on screen, which Jeremy is now sharing on screen, diolch, which you can put on screen at the beginning of the meeting so that everyone who joins is aware that they can use the interpretation channel if they need it. It explains the pop-up box that they'll see on arrival and what to do with the pop-up box in order to select the channel they want to hear. But what it also will explain is the effect that having your spatial audio setting turned on will have. So spatial audio is a setting within your sound settings that will allow you to hear participants who are speaking on the right side of the screen. You'll hear them more loudly in the right side of your headsets. Unfortunately, this causes a significant issue with simultaneous interpretation because you end up hearing the interpreter's voice and what we call the floor language, the original speaker's voice, at the same volume, which is a really uncomfortable experience. So as the slide recommends, we strongly urge people to turn that setting off, ideally before they get into the meeting, just to avoid that completely. But if you do happen to get people in the chat perhaps saying that they can hear both voices at the same time, it is more than likely that they have that setting, the spatial audio setting, turned on. So that's what we would advise, is turn it off. I'm just double checking I've covered everything. Yeah, so if I pass back to Jeremy to just cover off co-organisers.
No problem. And before I do that, I would like to echo lots of the things that Indeg said, mainly the need to test on the exact same link you're going to be using for the meeting. By so doing, you know that it's the exact settings of the meeting you'll be holding live in a few days or whatever. You can test it as long as it's set up beforehand whenever you like. So one of the things Indeg mentioned was swapping interpreters, and that's because external translators are external to your organization and therefore not covered by the security policies of your organization. So that's why they will not show up in a drop-down, even if you've invited them and even if they have accepted the invitation. They won't show up in the drop-down to be interpreters. Only internals will do that until the meeting starts. So start the meeting half an hour early, 20 minutes early, share the slide. Make sure the interpreter is there with you. And I say share the slide on screen, not email out. Make sure the interpreter is there with you 15, 20 minutes beforehand. And if you put a dummy interpreter in from someone who's internal, swap them to the external interpreter from the company you may be using, and then everything should work. And one thing that sometimes doesn't work is that a meeting is set up by a human who is on holiday or ill when the actual meeting happens. And that's the importance of co-organisers. Co-organisers, as the name would suggest, co-organise the meeting with you. So if I organise a meeting for next Wednesday with 50 people in it and a lot of them need simultaneous interpretation and I haven't set it up correctly and I'm on leave that day, there is nothing anybody can do. So that's the importance of having co-organisers to mitigate the risk of someone being ill, someone being off sick. So that is the end of the session. I'll take you on a whistle-stop recap. So this is about human language interpretation, excuse me. And we book a human interpreter, maybe internal, more probably than not in the public sector in Wales from an external company. So we book him or her. And then internally, we organize a meeting. We set up the meeting and we invite whoever we want in the meeting to be in that meeting, and they will respond when they want to. And then we go into the meeting options and we enable language interpretation. We add the language pair, more likely than not Welsh and English in our case, from Welsh to English, and then we add the interpreters from the drop down, bearing in mind that only internals will likely show up. So if you are using an external and they don't and they won't show in the drop down, then you put a dummy internal interpreter in, because you will test the meeting with interpreters, and you must, well, it's up to you, but it's really good practice to do so. You really must test the link with the interpreter there, the exact one you're going to be using, and that means you can swap the internal dummy interpreter to the external commercial interpreter. So hopefully this video has been useful to you. If you want to, it would be really useful if you could read all the guidance If you could test, test, and test again to make sure that those skills are really embedded in your organization. If you've tested, if you've read the guidance, if you've watched these videos and something still doesn't work, that's very unlikely, but that's when we can come and help you. So drop us a line at Cymraeg2050@gov.wales if that's the case. And for the time being, pob luck with your bilingual meetings, and diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much.